Alright. This might be final day of testing. Then I can get back to actually making the game. I didn't really need to do all this, but I don't know. I set a goal. I wanted to accomplish the goal. I think it would have looked bad if I didn't accomplish the goal. Let's see. So do this. I mean, can I go this way? I'll be able to see all of them. I don't think you guys can see all of them. So I'm on an ultra wide. I don't like that. I don't like the way that feels. I'll just do up and down. I had something in mind that I wanted to talk about, but then I forgot. New trailer for the Street Fighter movie came out. It actually looks pretty fun. I kind of, like, from the first trailer, got a sense that they were going for something very stylized. And I really like very stylized. It's like, some of my favorite movies, just, like, in general, are Speed Racer. I talked about that a lot. That's, like, my number one. Like, depending on the day, it might be my number one, and, like, how recently I've watched it. I also really love Sin City, and I love, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So I just love these movies that have, like, very stylized visuals. Oh, and Tron. Like, just all the Tron movies. Big fan. I mean, my rating would be Tron Legacy is the best. And the other two, I think I enjoyed Tron Ares more than the original Tron. I never really liked watching the original Tron. It's more a movie that I respect and appreciate more than enjoy. It's not bad, it's just like, it's kind of slow, the pacing's weird. And Tron Legacy kind of feels like, I don't know, it accomplished what it felt like to watch Tron as a kid, if that makes sense. It was kind of a remake of Tron, but it did. I think it pulled it off better. But yeah, like I love stylized visuals. And the thing is, like, a lot of those movies don't do well, so we don't see many highly stylized visuals in live action movies, or at least, like, mainstream blockbusters. Speed Racer, one of the biggest flops of all time. Yeah, nobody saw it. Sin City did decently well, but it wasn't like a massive hit. I was actually, I looked up how well it did, and I was surprised that it didn't do nearly as well as I thought, because I was like, I think that was one of the first R-rated movies I was allowed to see. I went to see it with my dad, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I thought everyone had seen it. But then, like, I've talked to people about it, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, I never saw that. And, and then, like, I looked up the box office, and it was, like, respectable, but not great. And what else? Yeah, Tron kind of notoriously has always underperformed. And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was kind of, at the time, considered a, like it reviewed well, critics loved it, the people who saw it loved it, but not many people went to see it. Like, I don't think it totally flopped. Like, it did well enough that, you know, the brand still had value and stuff. And it especially kind of gained traction throughout the years. But it wasn't a huge hit at the time. And that's like my curse. Is that I love these movies that just have like very stylized visuals and they don't do well. I do feel like that has changed in recent years. Where like especially in animation, you know, Spider-Verse kind of changed the game, and we're getting much more stylized animated movies now. And then in live action, I feel like I'm trying to think. How often do we get, like, especially stylized live-action movies? And also, how would you define stylized? I don't know. But that kind of, like, very over-the-top, not really concerned with reality stylization of those earlier movies that I mentioned, like Sin City, Speed Racer, Scott Pilgrim, and Tron. I think that's very rare. And then in terms of like TV, another good example is One Piece live action, where they take the same approach as Speed Racer, where they're like, yeah, we're just going to embrace the entire, like, the source material with all our heart and adapt that into live action, and it's going to look ridiculous. You know, this guy's going to have a very stupid haircut, and just there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that looks silly, and we're just going to be totally sincere about it. We're going to play it straight. We're not going to have people make sarcastic remarks about how silly it is. We just play the whole thing straight. There's a guy named Captain Smoker, and he smokes a lot, and his power is that he turns into smoke, and nobody's gonna make a snarky remark about it. And I mean, I guess that's, you know, not the visuals, but that's more the characters and writing and story. But, you know, in terms of visuals, like, people, it'll just very colorful, very silly, and just not ashamed of it. And that is the vibe I'm getting from the Street Fighter movie, where they are just going all in on being very visually stylized and very just true to the games. Like, it looks like the games, but the people are real. And I think that's really cool. So I'm pretty excited for that. I feel like, if nothing else, it looks like it's going to have really fun fight scenes. And I do feel like the world is more ready for stylized visuals than people were 15, 20 years ago. Because I've talked about this, like, 2008 was the year of The Dark Knight and Iron Man. It was the year of serious, gritty realism. And, you know, like, I've talked about this before, but, like, yes, the original Iron Man was relatively gritty and realistic. It did that concept, and not maybe not gritty, but grounded, in a grounded way that was quite different from the full-fledged comic booky stuff we got later in the MCU. And yeah, so, like, late 2000s was about gritty and grounded and not about cool stylized visuals. So that's, I think, a big reason. Like, Speed Racer was rejected and Scott Pilgrim went under the radar to become a cult classic, and yeah. And I do think there was a reason for that too, where we could culturally talk about, you know, the whole War on Terror thing that kind of set the tone of America in the 2000s and all of that. But also, I think there was a backlash against CGI that looked like cartoons, against, you know, your Jar Jar Binkses and it's like so many of the comic book movies up to that point had, like, very silly plastic looking CGI, and there's this kind of rejection against that silliness, because that was still very, like, associated with, you know, Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. So, like, CGI was kind of associated with making the movie look like a dumb cartoon, even if it was trying to look serious. So, like, you know, these movies came out that intentionally tried to make the movie look like a dumb cartoon. And people were like, why does this look like a dumb cartoon? But, yeah, like, since then, I feel like people have gotten more okay with weird stuff in movies. And I do think part of that is thanks to the evolution of the MCU. Because, like, as I said, like, it started as like, kind of grounded and some, like, as realistic as you could do Iron Man. But then, you know, we added Thor, and we added Hulk, and we added Captain America, and we did the Avengers, and, you know, we were hesitant to do magic, but then we finally did magic, and then, like, eventually we get to a point where they can do a movie called Guardians of the Galaxy, where there's a talking raccoon and a talking tree, and people took it seriously. And then we got to a point where they could do Thor Ragnarok, which is like very, like that is probably one of the more stylized movies in the MCU. But like, yeah, so like the MCU kind of helped ease people back into accepting like, yeah, movies can be silly sometimes, and not only can they be silly, but you can still take the characters and stories with sincerity, even if the concepts are silly. So, yeah, and then we're also in a place where people are more accepting of video game adaptations. So I think the success of the Street Fighter movie will ultimately come down to, is it good? And I think if it is good, I think people will go see it. And if it isn't, they still might go see it. But it's... And by good, like, you know, I have talked a lot about what does good mean. Because there isn't an objective measurement of good, but say, if it gets good reviews and good word of mouth, I think people will be like, oh, okay, I'll go check this out. I don't think we're going to see as much, like, kind of rejection of the general look of the movie as we may have 10 or 15 years ago. And also Street Fighter is in kind of a better place now than it's been in a while, because Street Fighter 6 was good. I also wonder, like, obviously they want to have franchise plans. If the movie is a success, they're going to want to do sequels. You wouldn't make a video game movie and be like, that's it, I did one, that was my artistic, you know, endeavor, and we don't need a sequel to this video game movie. It's like, if you're making a video game movie, you're looking to do a franchise. So, this movie looks like they're just straight up doing Street Fighter 2, but they're calling it Street Fighter. But it does look like the tournament everyone is competing in is called the World Warrior Tournament 2. So, you know, let's say it's successful and gets a sequel. Like, I'm kind of curious where they go next, because the Street Fighter timeline is very silly. Because the next game to come out after, you know, chronologically as, not chronologically, but in terms of release date, was Street Fighter Alpha and those games. And those games introduced a lot of concepts that have just become standard, because those games are kind of like a retcon of Street Fighter 1. Not exactly, but sort of. I guess they were sort of a prequel to Street Fighter 1, but also they reinvented a lot of the characters from Street Fighter 1. And also tied in Street Fighter Final Fight. And like introduced a lot of very popular characters like Akuma and... No, not Akuma, but Akuma was Super Turbo. I mean, like Sakura and Dan. And Dan is in the movie. Wait, where did I go to that one? But like, so if you go forward from, you know, Street Fighter 2 to the next one, well, the next one to come out was Alpha, but that was a prequel. But at the same time, like I said, it did introduce a lot of notable new elements that, you know, could make an interesting movie. Okay, or do you do Street Fighter 3, which was a sequel, but it kind of ditched a lot of the known characters. But at the same time, it introduced a lot of popular new characters, like, I don't know, who are the most popular Street Fighter 3 characters? I guess, like, Alex, Elena. Oh, this is the orb room. Like G. Is that his name? No, not G is in later. Q. So yeah, do you do Street Fighter 3? But then the next game chronologically is Street Fighter 4. But Street Fighter 4 was like almost kind of a soft reboot after Street Fighter 3, because Street Fighter 3 was not super successful at release. It's kind of like remembered as legendary now because of its impact on the FGC, but at the time, it just wasn't very successful because they didn't include a lot of the characters people cared about from Street Fighter 2. Like, it introduced this whole new cast of weirdos. I also, okay, I believe I heard, like, it originally wasn't even supposed to be a Street Fighter game. They kind of took another fighting game they were working on and just called it Street Fighter 3 and added Ryu and Ken, so it kind of felt like Street Fighter. But yeah, so like after that, the series kind of went dormant for a while, and then Street Fighter 4 came back, and it was kind of like a reboot. They just kind of was like, okay, we're just doing Street Fighter 2 again. We're gonna bring in a few of the characters from Alpha, a few of the more popular characters from Alpha, and I think a couple characters from 3. But it's like, it's mostly we're bringing back the Super Turbo cast with like all 16 of them, I think. Wait, was it all 16? I think they may have left out DJ that time, or he was added very late. But okay, like I am jumbling around my brain. It was very much a nostalgic throwback of, yeah, we're going back to Street Fighter 2. And so that's kind of, they really only had 4 new characters at launch, and none of them really stuck around. And I don't really see like huge fans of those characters, because it was okay. Well, Crimson Viper, I think it was pretty well received, and she just came back in 6, so you know she's cool. I could see them doing her in the movies. Then like Rufus, I think was really unpopular because he was a silly fat joke character. I kind of liked Rufus. He was a goofy guy, but I liked how, like, he wasn't purely a joke. Like, he was a goofy guy, but he was actually a skilled fighter. It's just like Ken was better. But I liked how he wasn't necessarily like a villain. He was just kind of a silly guy who had a grudge, and but at the end of the day, he went back home to his super hot girlfriend, who, you know, they loved each other, and it's like, I don't know, I think that's nice that the joke character kind of has a nice home life and isn't a total mess. He just kind of, he's a bit of a goofball. But yeah, I couldn't see them doing him in a movie. And then there's El Fuerte, who is in the movie, or in the trailer, just gets knocked out by Ken in one kick. So that, but he's chubby in the trailer, so I wonder if they're like setting up that he's gonna go get fit, because he was like a small guy in the game. So like, he's gonna go get fit and then he's gonna come back in the next movie. Maybe? I don't know. But he was never really a villainous character or anything. He was just a strange guy. Let's see, who else did they add in Street Fighter 4? Oh, they added Abel, the most boring and forgettable character in Street Fighter. Like, I don't know. I think there are people who like Abel. There were people who played as Abel, but he's just like everyone else has a thing. It's like, oh, Zangief wrestles bears. El Fuerte likes, you know, he cooks and screams the name of Mexican food when he does his attacks. I feel like any character you can think of, they have at least one thing that defines them. Elena has very long legs and kicks people with them. Chun-Li has very thick thighs. It's like, Guile has his Sonic Boom and Flash Kick, and the just design-wise, the very distinct haircut. And Abel is just a blonde guy in a blue gi. Like, he is just such a nothing character, and he doesn't really have any interesting moves. He's kind of a grappler, I guess, but it just like not a very interesting grappler. Yeah. And then there was some secret stuff hinted at in the story that, like, oh, Abel actually has some secret, and then that didn't go anywhere. Just like, and they never really followed up on that. The one character from the one character introduced in Street Fighter 4 that really stuck around and just became a mainstay to the series was God, why is her name Juri, who just, yeah, for, you know, reasons, she was a very popular character. People like the very sassy evil girl who doesn't wear shoes. So I can see them doing Juri in the movies because she's kind of quickly become a mainstay. But yeah, that's kind of the dilemma, is like, okay, after Street Fighter 2, where do you go? Do you do Street Fighter Alpha and sort of try to make that a sequel instead of a prequel? Because I feel like Alpha kind of added the most iconic new characters to draw from, and iconic new concepts. Do you do Street Fighter 3 because that was the next game numerically, but then that game feels like you're going in a completely different direction. But like, I guess you could just do Gil, but not necessarily get rid of all of the Street Fighter 2 cast. Just like, okay, yeah, we're doing Gil next. Or do you do Street Fighter 4, which is the next chronologically, but like, you know, it's 3 games later and doesn't really offer much new. I mean, I guess again, you could just do Seth as the villain. So they're gonna fight Bison in this movie and presumably beat him, and he'll have some story about coming back in the next movie with like Rose, maybe, I don't know. And then the other aspect is, I feel like Capcom would want them to kind of get to the Street Fighter 6 characters sooner rather than later. Because, you know, they are kind of the current face of the series. And they want to remind people that, oh, hey, yeah, we also got these Street Fighter 6 characters. Like, if they have this game, like in the game series right now, they're sort of trying to do a generational, like, passing of the baton sort of thing. I think not entirely. I don't think we're ever going to get a Street Fighter game without Ryu and Ken and Chun-Li. But I think they are laying the groundwork for a Street Fighter game that is primarily the newer generation of younger characters that they have set up throughout the series, with kind of, you know, Ryu is the older, like, he's still there, but but Luke is the face of the series. And if they're trying to do that in the games right now, but then the movies are like, nope, it's still mainly the Street Fighter 2 cast. I don't know. It kind of conflicts with Capcom's plans. But also, maybe Capcom doesn't really care about that. Basically, what I'm getting at is that I want to see Marisa sooner rather than later. I want to see how stupid her haircut looks in live action, and I mean that affectionately. But of course, this is all kind of assuming this first movie is good enough and successful enough that anyone cares to see a sequel. I'm just kind of like spitballing. I'm just curious, like, they probably have plans, but I wonder what those plans are, because Street Fighter is such a mess in terms of story. Why do I keep doing that? And also, like, the fact that Street Fighter didn't really get good and notable until Street Fighter 2 is kind of weird. Because, I don't know, it was a whole thing, and you know, as the 90s, we could just look this stuff up on the internet about why did they start with Street Fighter 2? Nobody had played Street Fighter 1. Like, what was Street Fighter 1? Was there a Street Fighter 1? And of course, it's easy to look up now. Yes, there was. It just wasn't very good. But it was very interesting as a kid to see like 37 versions of Street Fighter 2 and just be like, but which one is Street Fighter 1? Or they could just jump straight to Street Fighter versus X-Men. Or do Darkstalkers. Okay. I think now I need to find just figure out where the last rooms are. Speaking of Darkstalkers, I was thinking, like, you know what, oh, this room. Okay. I didn't finish this room because it was very annoying, because this used to be, like, inside of that, and it was very hard. Yeah, I didn't like the way this room turned out, so I moved that thing outside of it just so I could get a better angle on the things to click. Okay, so Darkstalkers, maybe, like, Capcom is hesitant to bring that back because I mean it's understandable. It kind of covers gameplay-wise similar ground to Street Fighter, and if you're going to invest that money into a fighting game, like that money and manpower and just resources into a fighting game, why not make more Street Fighter? Why make Darkstalkers instead of more Street Fighter? And you know, this isn't the 90s when people were really into fighting games and they were willing to support multiple fighting games. Most people are gonna play maybe one fighting game. But, you know, it would be a good angle to bring back Darkstalkers is Darkstalkers versus Resident Evil. Like, you know, Resident Evil is super popular, and it is a series about fighting monsters. Of course, a very different kind of monster. Like, Resident Evil is all about monsters of science, whereas Darkstalkers is mainly about like supernatural stuff, with vampires and actual werewolves and stuff. But I think that would make it interesting. Is like Of like monsters of science versus monsters of supernatural or whatever. But it would also, just from a business standpoint, Resident Evil has a lot of very popular characters that I think people would take note if you put them in a fighting game. And I've talked before how I think Leon would be great for Smash Bros. I also... I don't know. Like, I could name a bunch of Resident Evil characters who I think would be awesome in a fighting game. But I think maybe not an entire roster of Resident Evil characters. Because a lot of them are ultimately a guy or girl with guns. And there's only so many ways you can do that. It's like, yeah, you can make... Leon like more tactical, and you can make Chris more of a brute, and have Jill like jump around, but ultimately they are still all a dude or dudette with guns. You can also bring in like other characters like Wesker, Lady Dimitrescu, and monsters like Nemesis. Who else would make a good fighting game character? Like Birkin, Sadler, or Krauser, yeah. Hunk, again, though, that's a guy with a gun. So I do think at some point you kind of start covering a lot of the same ground, and that's why a crossover with Darkstalkers would be cool, because it would... You would get to do a Resident Evil fighting game without having to fill up the entire roster, and you would kind of introduce people to Darkstalkers and kind of get those characters in people's minds. And of course Frank West would be a guest character. Why does Capcom have so many, like, horror-adjacent series? Okay. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have, like, more of these instead of this little pillar. I don't like this little pillar. I think the buttons are definitely too small. Annoying since they're moving around. I guess this isn't impossible to deal with, just like, I don't know. I think this room just... There's been a few rooms where I'm like, this is kind of annoying, but I don't know, once you kind of get into the groove, it's just not too bad. This one is more annoying than I want it to be. I saw that Marvel Rivals, so they always kind of tease the next season's characters in the, like, the artwork that they release in the season pass. So the final artwork will always have a hint as to who the next season's characters are. And it seems like this season, the big hint was like kind of screaming Devil Dinosaur and Cyclops. That's cool. I think Cyclops was inevitable. It was really just a matter of when. And they've been teasing him for a bit. We got Phoenix a while back. It's like you can't do Jean without Scott eventually. Like, especially since they have Jean and Emma. So like Scott was coming eventually. But Devil Dinosaur is really interesting. And also creates a lot of questions about how he'll be implemented. I'm actually not surprised about Devil Dinosaur, though. I think it's interesting, but I'm not too surprised. Like, when the game came out, I kind of looked at... I'd made my own list of, like, characters and how likely I thought they were going to be. And I was going to make, like, a video of predictions, and just kind of turned out to be a lot of work. So I never wound up doing it. This is annoying because like you get into this angle where you can't really get a good shot of the ones on the inside. I guess you can just move around. But yeah, I kind of like was thinking about what characters might be likely. And I feel like my predictions have been pretty good so far. Like, I haven't... The only one I've been surprised... The only addition I've been surprised at was Angela. Mainly because I thought... We already had a lot of... Asgardian characters between Thor... Hela and Loki. So I thought another one in the first year was pretty unlikely, because that was kind of heavily balanced, like compared to we didn't really have any other Iron Man characters, and the only other Captain America character is Bucky. So getting 3 Thor characters at launch was like, surely we're not going to get another one anytime soon. But then, yeah, we got Angela. And the other thing is I figured Angela kind of covers a similar some similar ground as Valkyrie would. And Valkyrie, I feel like, is more well known thanks to the movies, even though she is a very different character in the movies. But yeah, I figured if we were getting one of them, Valkyrie was far more likely. But nope, we got Angela. But that's the only one I've really been surprised by. Like, all of the other ones, I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. Even White Fox, I feel like everyone was very shocked by that. And that one was... I thought pretty logical. Because I looked at... you know, NetEase is a Korean company. It seems like they have been... Wait, are they Korean or are they Chinese? I think they're Korean. Or, no, they're Chinese. Because they do a bunch of, like... Chinese holidays in the game, which is kind of my point, is that they are trying to put a lot of like their culture and Eastern Asia representation in the game with choosing Lin Lie and choosing like Penny Parker and Luna Snow. So like they've clearly been making an effort to put more representation of their home region in the game. So I thought it was very likely that we were going to get more Agents of Atlas characters, and Agents of Atlas is basically Avengers in Asia. So I don't really know why it's called Agents of Atlas. It seems like it's like a repurposed name from like a very old team. But anyway, yeah, like Luna Snow was on that, Lin Lie was on that. So I thought it was pretty likely that we'd get at least one more member. And I was looking at the characters who were on the team, and I felt like the most likely ones were either Wave, Arrow, or White Fox. And yeah, so when they announced White Fox, I was like, oh, okay. And then like I was looking at how successful Jeff was, and I was like 100% they're going to add more pet characters. At least one more, but probably more. And the most likely options to me seemed like Devil Dinosaur or Lockjaw. I also thought, you know, like Alligator Loki wasn't a 0% chance, because Alligator Loki is kind of, I'd say like sort of the Daffy Duck to Jeff's Bugs Bunny, if that makes sense. But the thing holding back Alligator Loki, I felt, was the fact that he doesn't really have a name except Alligator Loki. Which I know is like a weird thing to kind of bring up, maybe, but it's, I don't know, branding is important. And also the fact that we already have Loki. People might kind of say, okay, that's not all of them. There we go. Hooray! I finished this kind of annoying room. Yeah, so yeah, people might say like, why do we have two Lokis? And it's like, yeah, that's a fair question. So yeah, my kind of top two potential pet characters I figured were Lockjaw or Devil Dinosaur, and also of the two, like, Lockjaw is tied to the Inhumans, and Marvel's kind of not, like, that whole thing didn't work out, so they kind of, in the comics, killed off most of the Inhumans and moved on, and it seems like Marvel is not super keen on pushing the Inhumans now. Whereas Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur are still around. They had a show, it got canceled despite being very good. Okay, this is the part I was kind of worried about. I'm just gonna like have to walk around until I find the last few rooms. And the potential issue with Devil Dinosaur was that he was maybe too big. But then when they released a like the collector's museum map, and there was like a little Devil Dinosaur, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's 100%. Maybe not one, like 90% were getting Devil Dinosaur. And also the fact that he was so prominently featured in the Deadpool trailer. I don't know. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised. But I am happy because that was one character I really was rooting for. Because I think just playing as a dinosaur will be fun. But also I like Devil Dinosaur from the comics and the show. I really like Moon Girl. So that's kind of the big question, is like, is Moon Girl gonna be teamed with him? And that was kind of a big question, was like I let's see, how am I kind of let me gather my thoughts. I think the issue with Moon Girl that I always kind of thought about was that putting a 10-year-old girl in a shooter maybe doesn't look great. Where, like, having the Punisher shooting Moon Girl with an actual gun is maybe bad optics. And yeah, it's like, it's a video game and shouldn't take it too seriously, but you still have to consider the optics. Let's see. But they could have just, like, for so many characters, they have alternate versions of them. And or they, that's not what I mean, is like, for a lot of characters, the Marvel Rivals version is like the Marvel Rivals version. Like, we're doing something a little bit different with this character than you get normally in the comics. Oh, okay. I thought this one I hadn't done yet. But like, Daredevil has his whole... Oh, okay, I forgot that's where this door went. Has his whole, let the devil out thing. He literally has a devil, so they could do like the Angel and Devil season. Here. Okay. Well, I guess I'm just walking around until I find a room I haven't done. But yeah, like they could make the Marvel Rivals version of Moon Girl, just age her up, make her a teenager. Like, I think it would be fine. Hmm. Okay. So I'm thinking I definitely need to come up with some sort of mechanic that can help guide the player to a room that they haven't completed. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I just let the player figure it out on their own. Yeah. So my prediction with Devil Dinosaur is that he's going to be like that small Devil Dinosaur. Like, he's obviously going to be a Vanguard, but he's going to be the small, back in this area, the small version during normal play, and then his ult turns him into his full giant T-Rex size. And I think it will just be Devil Dinosaur for now. I think his story will probably mention Moon Girl. I suspect like his whole deal might be that Moon Girl gave him a shrinking potion, or a shrinking device, because that's what happens in the cartoon. And it's just acting up, and so that's why he is small. Lorem Ipsum. Okay, so I feel like there's probably 2 rooms left. 2 or 3. I feel like I've been pretty thorough. Let's see. Alright. Yeah, this is something I thought might happen. You hold the smallest button in the game. Here is the room where we found the button. There it is, still blinking. Or I say blinking, I think about the joke in Robin Hood Men in Tights. There's a guy named Blinken. Someone says, "Hey, Blinken." He says, "Did you say hey, Blinken?" It's a very dumb joke. I gotta keep walking around. I gotta find it eventually. I mean, I'm pretty sure I had 200,000. I don't know. Hello. There we go. I actually thought I had done this room, but I guess I was remembering wrong. Take out the tilt. Nope, I haven't taken that out yet. I'm gonna take that out because people didn't like it. Actually, just gonna peek through this door. Okay. Man, I know exactly where this room is too, and I thought I had done it. So I think this is going to be the last room. Just these last two rooms. Yeah. I'm going to take a break for a second and rest my arm before I like get fully committed to these last two rooms. Get some water. My shoulder's feeling a bit sore. So, I'll be right back. See, I'm gonna go post a link. Why do I have 30 plus notifications? What did I post? Oh, it's just like showing me all the notifications that happened today because this dumb website has been messed up. Oh, let's see. I'm streaming a game, and I'm currently the final two. Come drop in if you want to see me. Click the 200,000th button. Hooray. I don't know if anyone's even gonna show up, but whatever. Back to game. Back to game. Back to reality. The game is life. Buttons are life. So yeah, this actually, like, playing the game has been very interesting. I think I am making something very strange and unique here that I don't even know if I understand what it is, but it is oddly compelling I think, at the very least, I think I'm going to give at least one autistic kid an incredible fidget toy. And that autistic kid getting an incredible fidget toy is me. But also maybe another autistic kid will get an incredible fidget toy out of this. I unmute? Yes, I unmuted. I hate moving the mouse up. It's so annoying. Like, it's so easier to move the mouse left or right. I just don't like the mouse in general as an input device, especially for video games. It's like, I understand that on a mechanical standpoint, it is very good at what it does. There isn't really a perfect alternative. But I just think it's not ergonomically made for playing games. It's not made for extensive use. That's why I really like gyro aiming, is that I feel like I get most of the accuracy that you get out of a mouse, speed and accuracy, but in a much more ergonomic form factor. But it's, you know, at the same time, I'm aware that, like, as an indie developer, trying to support something like that by myself is a lot of extra work. Trying to implement something like that is a lot of extra work. And most players wouldn't be using it. I also don't know if this is a great candidate for gyro aiming, because it's less aiming and shooting and more pointing and clicking, if that makes sense. Like, in a sense they are the same thing, but they also aren't. Let's see. Nope, no bites yet. I also might, like I had a lot of ideas for other stuff to add to this game. I think I'm going to manage the scope a little bit and be like, look, my #1 priority is getting 1,000,000 buttons in the game, and then after that I can sort of figure out what else I want to do, what else I want to add. This room looks pretty cool. It's lit up. I think that's like the thing with this game, is that a lot of the rooms look really cool when they're lit up. So that is, I don't know, I think that will be motivation for a lot of people to just click all the buttons in the room to see what it looks like when it's lit up. Maybe. I don't know. I'm also assuming, like, that makes the big assumption that people will actually play this. Which is not a safe assumption. Not too. More than halfway done. spirals are hypnotizing me. Also, also, I think I was already kind of tired when I started playing, so... Saw that Spaceballs 2 is finally happening. And they're not calling it Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. I find that interesting. Like, as what we've always expected it to be called, because that's what they said it would be called in the first movie, as a joke, because they didn't expect to make a sequel, but now they are making a sequel. It's weird that they're not doing it. Like, they literally, Mel Brooks had a whole video where he was talking about, yeah, that's not what we're calling it. So I wonder why. It seems like a real easy win. I guess, my guess is that Amazon, because I think Amazon is producing it and distributing it. Maybe they just thought that was too, like, cynical of capitalism to literally put that in the title of the movie. They're like, wait, but that's actually why we greenlit this movie, because we wanted more money. It's it feels bad if you make us the punchline. That's just my speculation. A game speculation. I guess a movie speculation. I guess the other part is I suspect, again, like I said earlier, if you're making a movie based off a video game, you're not looking to do a one and done, you're looking to do a franchise. And similarly, if you're bringing back if you're reviving an old movie and doing a legacy sequel, you're not looking to do a one and done, you're looking for a potential franchise. So calling it Spaceballs 2 may have worried that calling it Spaceballs 2 would alienate potential audiences who haven't seen the first one, and especially doing this Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. Maybe they worried that people who haven't seen the first one would be turned off by the 2 in the title because they haven't seen the first one. But also, I missed one. Why am I struggling to aim? But also, if you don't know that that's a joke in the first movie, that's kind of a weird subtitle. I don't know. I still think they should have gone with it, but I suspect what it is that they decided that wouldn't be the best title for like a new beginning of a potential franchise. Because it got what's his name? I don't know, I was looking at the cast, and it looks like it's, they've got Lewis Pullman. And I didn't realize he is Bill Pullman's son. And he's playing his character's son. So that's cool. Kind of perfect timing, like as Lewis Pullman is kind of getting, like taking off. So I guess they kind of are potentially planning for like more movies with Lewis Pullman's character as the lead. They also, because the new title is just Spaceballs, the next one. It's not Spaceballs 2. It's not The Search for More Money. It seems like they probably thought that was a safer joke title. Because it's a joke, but you don't need, it doesn't make you feel like you should have seen the first one. I don't know. It's not quite as cynical as The Search for More Money. And it is, like, again, I want to be clear, like, I'm not trying to defend the decision, I'm just kind of trying to figure out why they made that decision. And I also, who else was in the cast? There was someone that was an unnamed character, but it seemed like, based on the actor, it was like Bobby Moynihan or something. I don't think it was Bobby Moynihan. Oh, it was, God, his name's slipping my mind, but the voice of the snowman in Frozen, who was also recently in Wonder Man in a pretty funny role. Well, playing himself. But, you know, a funny version of himself. And it says the role is unnamed. Based on the actor, it seems pretty likely to be Barf's son. I also... I don't know how well spoof movies hold up, really. I don't know how well that's gonna go. Because they did another, was that not? Oh, one more. They did another revival a few years ago. They did History of the World Part 2 as a show. And it had some good bits, but it was overall kind of, felt like a lot of it should have been cut out. They did it as a show, and I think it would have been better if they just compiled the best bits into one movie. But Naked Gun was pretty good. Like, I feel like they kind of figured out how to do the spoof movie thing. And make that work in the modern... I mean, they say make it work, but they just did the same thing. Alright. Final boss, I think. Is it? So that's going to be like 3,400. Did I put 3,400 in this room? Because I tried to limit it to about 2 to 3,000. So there might be one more room. I hope not. I hope there's not one more room because I don't really know where else it might be. I feel like I checked it. Like, this was the last place I could have thought to check. Let's see. There was one room I don't remember doing. But I also may have done it before, like, my big hiatus. Every time they reveal a new character from Marvel Rivals, like, Marvel Rivals players are, like, they want, like, 3 characters. It's like, I exclusively want the most popular and mainstream characters, and I am so mad if it's not those characters that I want. And it's like, come on, man. I don't know. It's a very silly perspective. Because, yeah, I was talking about, like, it's very, seems likely that we're getting Devil Dinosaur next time. And Cyclops, which is one of the big characters people have been asking for. It's like finally getting Cyclops, and then also balance it out with a lesser known character. I saw several people upset about that. I'm like, that's just silly, man. Like, I don't know. But on the other hand, I know I'm kind of weird when it comes to this stuff because I don't like getting safe picks. If I had my way, every, like, crossover game would just be the weirdos, the like the deep cuts that 5 people recognized. The glup shittos and scrimblow bimblows that make a very specific group of people lose their mind, and everyone else say, who? Because I love... I love when my favorite glup shittos and scrimblow bimblows get a bit of attention and get a chance. Like, Jeff was one of my favorite little scrimblow bimblows before Marvel Rivals came out, and that was like just the fact that they included him was a huge reason I was even bothered playing the game in the first place. So I was like, I did not expect this little guy that nobody knows to get into a game like this. And it made me very happy to see him there. And it made me happier still to see, how well they handled him and how just immediately lovable he was to so many people. And like I said, like Devil Dinosaur was another character I really wanted to see, and so that's gonna... I'm sure they're gonna make him look great and give him like a whole lot of personality. And a lot of people who had never heard of the character will suddenly know who he is and be fans. But also, I love playing crossover games and encountering a character I've never heard of before. So like, who is that? And then like finding out, it's like, oh, okay, that's who this is. They're from this thing, and they did this. That's cool. I didn't really know who Luna Snow was before Marvel Rivals, for example. I guess the big example is playing Smash Brothers as a kid, where I didn't know who a lot of the characters were. Like Smash 64, I was like, I didn't know who Samus was. I hadn't played Metroid before. I didn't know who Samus was. I thought she was a guy in a robot costume, or just a robot. And I was surprised when I found out she was a woman, and like Ness. Nobody knew who Ness was. Captain Falcon. I didn't know who Captain Falcon was. I like sort of heard of F-Zero, but like the F-Zero games didn't really have the characters in the games. Well, okay, F-Zero X did. The original F-Zero didn't. And then, like in Melee, nobody knew who Martha and Roy were over here in the US because we'd never gotten a Fire Emblem game. It was just like there was this mystery surrounding it, like, who are those guys? Like, I think it's hard to explain like how baffling their inclusion was. Like, oh, look at this Nintendo All-Star lineup. It's like, we've got Zelda characters, we've got Mario characters, we've got Pokemon characters, we've got Kirby and Samus, and like by that time I knew who Samus was, and because they'd announced a few big Metroid games coming out. And then you're playing the game, and like you unlock this weird blue-haired guy with a sword, and he's speaking Japanese, and you're like, I don't know what he's saying. I don't know who this is. What is happening? Like, what is Fire Emblem? What? And these days, it's so easy to just look that up. If there's a character you don't know in a game, you just look it up. But back then, it was just like, you go to school and be like, who are those guys? Like, you'll be like, I don't know, but they're pretty cool. So yeah, I love when crossover games just take a big swing. And I also love when, like, they take characters who are kind of on the verge of breaking out and kind of give them that extra push. Like Magic is a great example, where she's been on the rise in the comics for a while. Because from what I understand, she was dead for a very long time and wasn't really part of the comics. Like, she died in the 80s and wasn't really around in the 90s and 2000s, and kind of came back in the late 2000s. And kind of, like, that's when she got an updated design. I feel like there are two eras of Magic. There are before she got her little head thingy, the little, not horns, but just, she has a very distinctive head ornament. Like hairband or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's very distinctive. And I feel like that's when a lot of people started noticing her. I'm not necessarily going to say it's because of the head thing, but, you know, maybe. I think having a distinctive design didn't hurt. But also, it sounds like the way she kind of interacted with other characters when she came back was very fun, so I guess that's another aspect of it. Alright, after this wall, I'm going to go look over, and there should be... Let's see. There's what, like 3,400 left. So there should be about 1,700 left. Which would be from 200,000, like 1983. 1978. That's concerning. I think. Because that's 22. So there may still be one more room. Yeah, I think there's one more room, because I think I was a little bit over 200,000. So I guess we're back on the search after this. Yeah, there's not going to be 2,000 on this wall. I guess Tomodachi Life came out today, and it's fascinating how hyped I've seen people on the internet for that game, because the original game just kind of went under my radar. I just had no interest in it. I looked it up and it sold 6 million. So, like, I guess a lot of people played it, and I guess a lot of the people who played it really loved it. It's been like 10 years since the last one, so and now they have like all sorts of extra features, and yeah, probably watch some streams of the game. I just don't really have any interest in making Miis and watching them interact, but watching someone else make Miis and then react to them interacting, that could be fun. But the game itself, just, yeah, no shade, just not my thing. But it is interesting, like, how so many, like, the discourse in the Nintendo fandom recently has been like, oh man, Nintendo's gonna really struggle this year if they don't announce some big games. Like, those games that they have announced, like, those aren't big games. Those are like little niche games that people don't care about. The big games are the next Mario and the next Zelda. They need to announce those, or else they're gonna be in trouble. But that is not what turned out to happen. I think the people saying that are not aware that the industry's changed. The Nintendo's target audience is much bigger than online Nintendo fans. Like, that was the whole Blue Ocean strategy they did with the Wii and the DS. It was like, let's expand our audience beyond the conventional, at the time, gaming audience. And they did, and I think like they have, like, especially a very large, like, female fandom who prefers the I don't know, a different kind of game than the mostly male fandom kind of says, oh, this is the kind of game Nintendo needs. They need these, you know, big action adventure games and whatnot. Whereas it seems like what got so many women and girls, like, interested in Nintendo during the DS and Wii days was that Nintendo started to do some games that were more about intrinsic motivation, where, you know, the traditional gaming audience of, like, mostly males tended to enjoy competition and extrinsic motivation. They liked beating the bad guys, and they liked seeing numbers go up. And I like it too, as a guy and part of the traditional gaming audience. That is something that I enjoy. But I think there are a lot of people who weren't part of that traditional gaming audience that sort of, when they started to discover games where they could make their own fun and have this intrinsic motivation, they really got into them. And I think you know, it's not 100%, but I do think there is a trend in in the gender divide where women and girls tend to be more driven intrinsically. Versus, you know, men and boys tend to be more driven extrinsically in video games. And I think that's interesting. I don't really know why that would be, but it just does kind of seem to be like why Animal Crossing got so huge, especially with a female audience, is because it's a very intrinsically motivated game. It's not a game where you get points for decorating your house. It's a game where you decorate your house because you want your house to look cute. And, you know, you go talk to that character not because you're going to get, like, do an objective to do so, because you're going to complete an objective, but just because, like, oh, I like that character, I want to go talk to them. They're my friend. I've made friends with them. I kind of want to see what my friend has to say. And I think that's not the only type of intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation also isn't mutually exclusive with extrinsic motivation. I think a more conventional game can still have a lot of intrinsic motivation, and I think a great example of that is something like Skyrim, where like you can play that game however you want, and for some people the way to play that game is, oh, I got an objective, now I'm going to go complete that objective. And for other people, the way to play that game is saying, hey, I wonder what's over there, and then just go in and check it out. And the discovery of what is over there, even if it doesn't give you like a gameplay reward, just discovering what's over there is the reward. And I think in Skyrim, I think partly as a result of that, winds up having a pretty big female fan base. And I think with Breath of the Wild, Nintendo brought some of that intrinsic motivation into a Zelda game that is usually more about extrinsic motivation. It's usually more about, like, you know, I'm bombing this wall because, you know, I want to know what's behind it, but also I hope it's a heart piece. I hope it's an upgrade. And it's very, like, objective driven. Whereas the freedom given to you in Breath of the Wild allowed you to make your own fun and decide how you were going to engage with the world. Yeah, and I think we saw a similar thing with, like, Mario Kart World. I think their intention with that was to make a more intrinsically driven Mario Kart instead of a more competitive, well, on top of the more competitive aspects. But if you aren't into the competitive aspects, you still have something to enjoy. You have a world to drive around and make your own fun in. And I don't know how successful that was, but I do think, you know, Breath of the Wild was such a massive hit. And I think part of it was that intrinsic motivation, and that it kind of crossed this gender divide and appealed to the traditional male gaming audience, but also a female gaming audience who maybe wasn't into the more traditional types of games. And also, I'm talking very generally, like, it's obviously people are individuals. You aren't going to have Did I get one viewer an hour ago? Cool. People are individuals. People aren't going to share their tastes entirely based on like one aspect of their person. But there are also trends to note. And it is notable that Nintendo has kind of gone more into the... Okay, I've done this. Nintendo has been kind of embracing more of the intrinsically motivated games. And like putting more intrinsic motivation into their games. And in terms of, you know, like on top of, like I said, open world games where you can choose where to go. Also, a lot of their games let you choose your costume now. Like a big part of Splatoon, like Splatoon on paper is a very extrinsically motivated game. It is a very competitive game. So like you play and you win and you get points for winning. But a big part of the game is the style. Like getting a new outfit and like putting together your outfit and trying to make your character look stylish. That is a big part of the experience of Splatoon. I got these right. And then I also think they did something interesting with Animal Crossing New Horizons, where they went the other way and they added a more extrinsic motivation. With the Nook Miles system, where you did get points for doing stuff every day, and you know, you could spend those points on other stuff, and that is I think very I think the result was that a lot of people who I've seen a lot of complaints about New Horizons because it didn't have a lot of stuff that was in like New Leaf, or it wasn't there at launch and they added it later. But for me, I think New Horizons was easily the most appealing Animal Crossing game because it did have that extrinsic motivation. Anyway, so yeah, it's where was I? Like I think I've done this one. Yeah. So something like Tomodachi Life is very intrinsically motivated. The entire purpose of that game is to, you know, get into wacky scenarios and make characters do silly stuff. Or watch characters do silly stuff. It does seem a bit like the new one did add some extrinsic elements, though, because it does look like you can earn money to sort of upgrade your dudes and buy them new stuff. So that's interesting. Anyway, I think that there's an audience of gamers online who kind of don't realize that there is an entire other world of gamers out there who isn't having these conversations online. They are just kind of playing the games and having fun, and a lot of these players are or do tend to be the more intrinsically motivated ones. And so a lot of these games that are more intrinsically motivated, like Pokopia and Tomodachi Life, are like written off as kind of not games that really count, sort of, by some players who just aren't, those aren't the traditional types of games that were always like the real games. Those were like the weird little experiments, but that's just kind of not the case anymore. Like those games can be very successful. Okay. I haven't seen this room in a while, so maybe we're going in a good direction. Oh, here's the stairs. I think this is the tower. There's one room. I'm pretty sure I know what room I haven't done yet. No. But I don't remember where it is. It's like this room, but there's balls instead of cubes. But I don't remember where I put it. I mean, I think the big thing is I just need to make sure every room has multiple entrances and exits. Because, like, if a room only has one entrance and it's, like, off in a corner somewhere, that's very likely for players to miss. Or maybe I messed up. I'm missing one room. Okay, this hex room. I think where I haven't been is like in this area. I mean, I've been in this room, but like off in this direction. That was another thing, is I was kind of stubborn about adding a run button, but I am thinking I should probably add a run button. Maybe not a run button, but maybe just like as you hold forward, you speed up. Okay. That is the Moby Dick rooms. This is a spiral room. I go in here. Okay. Yeah, that's the maze. One of the mazes. Okay. This was going great until this. I am going to pause it here for a second while I look up I'm just gonna open up the project and be like, where is this final room? 'Cause I swear I know what room it is. I just don't know how to find it. So this is definitely a thing. But this is a thing where I'm like, is this some friction that is too much, or is it some friction that I can leave in the game? Because, if people get into the game and they really want to click all 1 million buttons, I mean, they will. Like, they'll figure it out, right? They'll figure out how to navigate this chaotic map, this chaotic world. Okay, 71 is that. So room 70 might be the one I'm looking for. Okay, wait. Yeah, room 70. This is the one I'm looking for. Where is room 70? Room numbers. All right. Okay. I know exactly where I'm going. One last room. One man, one room, 2,000 buttons. Let's see. The issue is I didn't go this way in this room. There's one. Yep, there we go. There we go. I knew it. This is the exact room that I knew I hadn't done. Apparently they leaked a remake of Assassin's Creed 4. And they're calling it Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Gotta make sure to hit that L there. Gotta make sure to hit that L. But Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. And this has been rumored for a really long time. I feel like most of the Assassin's Creed projects like are rumored long before they're revealed. But the thing is, like, they always get leaked. Like every single Assassin's Creed game, they get rumored way before, but then they like leak some concept art like a few days before the official reveal. And they always like find a new way to leak stuff. Like, oh, a piece of merch leaked out, or like another thing leaked out. I don't know. It's just, it happens every single time, and it's also, and it's not even a surprise either, because like I said, it's rumored long before it's revealed. Like, we knew about like Assassin's Creed Shadows, like years before. I feel like it was years before they officially announced it. I don't remember how that one got leaked, but it probably did. Anyway, it does feel like, I don't know, Like, why Black Flag specifically? Like, it's a great game, but I just feel like if you're going to remake an Assassin's Creed game, I feel like the first one makes sense, makes the most sense, because it's kind of the most dated. It just kind of is a... They were trying to do stuff. They were trying to go for a lot of cool stuff and a lot of like new and innovative ideas, and they kind of didn't nail all of them. I feel like today, with everything they've learned, they could probably do do a better job of capturing what Assassin's Creed 1 was going for. I clicked like 5 times and missed every single one. And also AC1 is the only one that isn't really available. I don't know. Like Black Flag is one of those games where they announce well, they haven't officially announced a remake, but they're about to announce a remake. And it's one of those ones where it's like, it doesn't really need it. It still looks really good. Like, the character models are a bit 2012. But, like, the environments still look great. And I'm not saying, like, it can't be improved. It does, I think my maybe controversial opinion is that I think Odyssey did everything that Black Flag did and kind of improved on it. I think the sailing felt much nicer, and I thought the way the sailing integrated into the open world was much nicer, because in Odyssey there are no load screens. I mean, there might be some somewhere, especially when you fast travel, but you can sail from one city on one end of the map and, you know, make your way to... Okay, you need to get out of the way. Make your way to another city on the other end of the map and not get any load screens. Whereas with the original release of Black Flag, you know, you had this big open world, but a lot of it wasn't actually accessible because a lot of the land wasn't accessible, and the towns, you know, there would be a load screen going into them. But then Odyssey is like, you look on the map and you see all those islands, and you can just go explore fully the entire island. And in Black Flag, you couldn't do that. You could explore like a few beaches on the coast that were specifically designed to be explored. So I can definitely see how a version of Black Flag that is kind of updated in that way, to where, oh no, this time you actually can explore the entire map. Like, that would be exciting. But I don't know, it's like, I don't know if it really needs it. I also don't know if current Ubisoft is up to the task of making a remake that won't piss people off. Because I feel like Black Flag is in kind of a similar state as Resident Evil 4. Not quite. Like, Resident Evil 4 is like, you know, all-time great and stuff, and Assassin's Creed 4 was seen as a very good open world game when it came out, but not quite that level of, you know, 10 out of 10 all-time masterpiece, like universally held as an all-time masterpiece that Resident Evil 4 is. But it is like a very well-regarded game, and if you're gonna announce a remake, you need to knock it out of the park. You can't not deliver excellence. You can't deliver anything less than excellence. Because if they... Like, I'm saying this as someone who has generally continued to enjoy the series. I think Shadows was very good. I'd put, like, a good... I don't remember how long. I think it was, like, a good 100 hours into it. It had a nice world to explore, and I liked the characters, and I liked... Like, it wasn't a groundbreaking Assassin's Creed game, but it was a very well done Assassin's Creed game. I thought Mirage was pretty good. It was a lower budget game that didn't break any ground, but it did what it set out to do, which was to be a more traditional type of Assassin's Creed game with, like, the RPG game's mechanics. And it wasn't perfect, but I enjoyed it well enough. Odyssey is one of my favorite games ever. It is my favorite Assassin's Creed game and one of my favorite games of all time. I feel like that one is just, like, extremely underappreciated. And Origins was very good. Like, the only Assassin's Creed game I'm like, I just don't like that one in the recent era was Valhalla. It just felt like they were... It felt like they didn't know what to do with it. It felt like they were aware of the criticisms of the RPG games, and so they tried to find a balance, and they wound up with a game that didn't really appeal to the RPG fans or the classic fans. So I think you know, this Black Flag remake will almost certainly be fun. I think if you take the Black Flag world and characters and story and put that in a modern Assassin's Creed game, it'll probably be a fun game. But if you do that with a lot of the issues that modern Assassin's Creed games have had, I think you're going to wind up with a game that in many ways people will feel is lesser. Like, you know, here's a big example, is that Assassin's Creed 4 kind of notably has very good facial mocap. Like, it's still... You know, they weren't making The Last of Us. They were making an open world game. They didn't have the polygon budget to make the characters as detailed as The Last of Us. But they still made, like, some very expressive characters, some very good actors putting on some very good performances. Like, it's I'm not a story in video games guy. So when I kind of go out of my way to say, yeah, the story was great and the performances were great, like they did something really right. But since Odyssey, they kind of stopped doing that kind of high quality mocap. And they went with like procedurally animated characters, which I understand. Like, to be fair, it made sense for Odyssey because they were making a very large game, and they added like RPG dialogue systems, so the characters needed to be able to say more. So it has more in common with like Skyrim in terms of structure, and I will say they did a better job than like the Bethesda style of dialogue where everyone is just a creepy animatronic robot with horrifying facial expressions and like, yeah, I think what Odyssey did and for the dialogue was good for an RPG. Not masterful, but good. And but it was, if you were expecting the mocap from traditional Assassin's Creed games, it felt like a step down. Like, the characters were not as expressive, the facial expressions were not as detailed. And so if you try to put Black Flag into the modern Assassin's Creed style, where we don't get those performances or anything close to those performances from the original version, like that's a huge misstep. Oh, come on. Yeah. So while I think that Odyssey was kind of an improvement on a lot of the gameplay mechanics of Black Flag, it was kind of a step down in some of the presentation. And I think if you, I don't know. Just like I said, if they release Black Flag resynced and it's not like incredible, it's just going to feel like, oh, Ubisoft is kind of desperate to get some goodwill back from for Assassin's Creed. Like, it's just going to feel like this, hey guys, remember how good this game was? And that is, like, undeniably what it is. Like, I think Black Flag is the last time the series was kind of universally acclaimed, and the last time, I would say like the only time in the post-Desmond era that the series was kind of, oh, there we go, I reached 200,000. Like, the only time in the post-Desmond era where the series was very well regarded, like, broadly. Which is interesting, because it, like, some of the games have sold very well, like, better than any of the games of the Desmond era. But it was, like, I don't know. like a different crowd than the people who are online talking about video games. It's, you know, the same crowd who makes Mortal Kombat the best-selling fighting game series, even though it has no presence, or very little presence in the FGC. You know, in the same crowd who is still buying Call of Duty every year, even though that series has kind of a negative reputation among more like dedicated and in the know gamers. But yeah, like Black Flag was kind of the last time Assassin's Creed was kind of sitting pretty and on top of the world, and then yeah, so it does feel like they chose that game specifically because they're gonna make people remember, oh yeah, these games used to be really good. I used to really love these games, and that can work. The problem is that if it doesn't work, it really backfires. It feels very cynical and exploitative. So I am curious what they're doing. I am also curious. I had this thought. So it's called Resynced. I wonder if that's like a an in-universe thing. Like, how to put this? Like, maybe this isn't literally a remake of Assassin's Creed 4. Maybe it is like in-universe, another person is going into Desmond's memories. Not Desmond, Edward's memories for a different reason than in, you know, the original. Because in the original you played as like just a nameless dude, nameless Abstergo employee. And it really felt like a point where they were kind of clearly didn't know what to do with the modern day stuff after Assassin's Creed 3. So that was like always the weakest point of the game. But like, I wonder if the remake is contextualized in universe as like a different person going through the same memories. So like that could be an interesting angle. And I also, like, I don't know, I wonder, like, will they bring back that style of combat? There's also the possibility, like, Resynced kind of lines up more with the kind of remake, or remaster titles that you tend to get. Like, the Darksiders games did this kind of silly stuff where it was like a War Mastered and Definitive Edition. So maybe it's just a remaster with updated graphics. Maybe that's all it is. But if that's the case, it just, I don't know, that feels like a why. The game still looks really good. Some slightly suboptimal character models, sure. But I don't know. Alright, here we go. The final ball. Wow, I've almost been going for 3 hours. Anyway, I do want to be optimistic. I do generally want to try to be optimistic. I just know that realistically, like, Ubisoft's been in kind of a bad place. So the reason this is being made is entirely to make some money and to generate some goodwill for Assassin's Creed. And I think if they don't kind of knock it out of the park, it's going to have the opposite effect. But on a personal note, I'll probably still enjoy it anyway. I think it's hard to make me dislike an Assassin's Creed game. There are definitely some I don't like. I don't care for 1. I don't care for Revelations. And I don't care for Unity. And I don't care for Valhalla, like I said earlier. But broadly, if you put me in a historical setting and let me run around on the rooftops, I'm probably going to find some fun. And I love the ship stuff. Like, yeah. Imagine if this turns out to be like a... somehow a tie-in to Skull and Bones. Actually... Huh. I wonder if maybe they're trying to reuse some of the assets from Skull and Bones, like, because that flopped, and they're like, well, let's kind of salvage some of this stuff to make something. And that something is the Assassin's Creed 4 remake. Which would be funny because Skull and Bones started as like, hey, let's use Assassin's Creed 4 to make a separate ship game. Because people love the ship stuff, let's just do a whole game. And then it just kind of went into development hell and took forever and came out and wasn't good, so... I don't know. That would be funny. Anyway, I think these are the last 4 buttons. That's it. That's it. Let's go. Ugh. All buttons. Let's try. Smaller. There we go. All right. I clicked every button. It took me over 30 hours, which is actually remarkably close to my estimate of what was my estimate? It was 1,000 buttons per 10 minutes. So 100 buttons per minute. It's 200,000 divided by 100. 2,000. I mean, I can do that in my head. I didn't need a calculator. Why did I? So 2,000 minutes divided by 60. Yeah, 33.3 hours was my estimate. And actual was 31 hours. Well, almost 32 hours. Yeah. That was a good estimate. And yeah. All right. That's it. Time to actually make the rest of the game.